The loud siren made it seem all too real. It was May 2021. I came to work that morning to find that one of my clients had suffered an attack. She was shaking ferociously, tears were flowing down her face, she could barely breathe. I called the ambulance and we were taken to the hospital immediately. She overdosed on pills. She took 12. The doctor said 4 more and she could have been successful in her attempt to end her life. For those of you who don't know, I've been a practicing counselor since 2021. Back to the story. For what happened to her, people around her had similar responses. I hear words such as, "This is nothing new, she's just acting. She's a liar, she does this a lot. Attention seeker. She's faking mental health." These are the exact words of her parents, her peers, and her teacher. I'm not making this up. The point is that this happens too frequently now. People who choose to end their lives have received criticisms for acting, seeking attention, and dramatic behavior. In February 2019, the Ministry of Health launched the Hope Line 145 as a preventive measure against the increasing rate of suicide attempts in Brunei. In the first 6 months since it was launched, over 1,300 calls were received. Another report from the Ministry of Health, again, in 2021, 1,515 people in Brunei were diagnosed with anxiety and depression. In that same year, in just a span of a month, from August to September, 1,058 calls were received. In another more recent report, in 2022, 2,428 calls were received, averaged up to 200 calls received per month. What does that tell you? Which is why I wanted to bring in this topic, the importance of a validator. Now, I am built differently. I am an incurable optimist. I grew up learning to understand that not many people can see the brighter side of things just as easily as I can. It is a genuine struggle for them. It was a revelation to me to know that all they need is to be heard and acknowledged rather than being told that this bad thing could be a good thing. But because of this understanding, I've become the validator that I am today and have come to realize how important it is to be one. Now, early in January 2020, 6 of my friends came up to me before having attempted suicide. All 6 of them have said the same things to me. I feel so alone. No one understands me. Nobody listens. Because all they can hear from others is to look on the bright side. Think positive. Stop crying, you'll get better. It's just temporary. There's a term for this type of encouragement: toxic positivity. Now, it's quite a new term introduced in 2020. Therefore, there hasn't been a lot of research done on it yet. However, from what I've gathered, according to Samara Quintero, a family therapist, and Dr. Jamie Long, a clinical psychologist from Florida, toxic positivity is the overgeneralization of happiness and optimism across all contexts, which ignores oncoming problems and suppresses unpleasant feelings. Now, being positive is healthy. However, it becomes toxic when feelings aren't addressed properly and are being suppressed instead. Emotional invalidation. In 2017, there was a study conducted from Walden University on the effects of self-efficacy responding to emotional validation and invalidation, which have proven that emotional invalidation could lead to negative effects to even later in life. But what does it really mean? Before we could draw to any possible conclusions, we must first have to look at the definition of self-efficacy. Albert Bandura, an American-Canadian psychologist, defines self-efficacy as people's beliefs in their own capabilities to exert control over their own behavior and the events that influence them. In another more recent study in 2020 from The Ohio State University, states on the effect of validation and invalidation on positive and negative affective experiences. Now, this study gave an excellent definition of what validation and invalidation are. According to this study, validation communicates that an individual's experience makes sense and are understood, whereas invalidation dismisses the validity of an individual's experience. Anyway, findings from this study shows that emotional invalidation creates a higher decline on positive effect and slower, more incomplete mood recovery after a discussion when one is angry. Another study published in the Journal of Child and Adolescent Psychopharmacology. And in this study, it says that emotional invalidation creates a negative impact on one's own emotional self-efficacy, that they are more likely to engage in self-harm activities and attempt suicide. Another study from Duke University shows that children with emotional invalidation, children who grew up in a non-validating environment, later in adulthood show symptoms of anxiety and depression, that they are more likely to suffer from chronic emotional distress, that emotional invalidation can be the source of their low self-esteem. So, what happens when one's own self-efficacy leads to negative effects? They lose hope. They give up on the will to live. So what does a validator such as myself do or say when facing these people? Words such as, I'm here for you. I hear you. I'm listening. I get that. Sounds rough. It makes sense that you feel that way. I can see where you're coming from. It's okay to cry. Let it out. These words have the power to change a person's mind about their attempt because they are not being denied of their feelings and emotions, which would have caused them to suffer even more, but rather they are being listened to, acknowledged, validated, creating hope, helping them to cope, and creating a safe space for them to express their feelings without any judgment. And this ensures a healthy life and well-being for anyone suffering, really. One person. That's all it takes. The validator. Thank you.